So what is leasehold? Something you may have been thinking about is buying a leasehold apartment, or you might have seen something about the Leasehold Reform Act. Whatever it is that's triggered the question, what is leasehold? I am going to explain it to you now, and I am going to also explain how it might be changing in the future. So, leasehold is something that's been around for centuries actually, and it was originally designed when wealthy landowners wanted to sell off parts of their property. So they might have had lots of cottages on the land, for example. You probably see these sometimes near castles or in villages where lots of property is owned by the duchy or whatever, or has been sold off on long leases, right? Now, this is something that's been around for centuries, and it's been typically used in flats and apartments for many years in England and in Wales. Now, so what typically happened is a lease was granted by a freeholder. So the freeholder is the owner of the land where the leasehold property is situated. And a leasehold might be an apartment within a building. The freehold is the building and the apartment is the leasehold. And the lease is granted, and this means sold to. The lease is granted to somebody who is buying it, and they will pay a fee for this, which is the purchase price. So if you see a leasehold apartment on the market today, it will have a price that it's valued at, and it's on the market with an estate agent. And what will happen, if it's a new lease that's going to be created, it will be granted to you on the day you purchase the property. If it's an existing lease, you will buy an existing lease that has already been granted. Now, typically, leasehold interests for residential property were between 99 and 125 years. But there's been a new act recently called the Leasehold Reform Act that has meant that these leases now it's going to be law very soon in the future. So the law has already been passed, it just hasn't been enacted, which means the government of the day, in this instance Labour, have not enacted yet. I think they will enact it quite soon. And what that means is each of those leases now, the new ones that are going to be granted, have to be, by law, 990 years. Now, I'm going to tell you something else that happens with leasehold apartments, and this is something really important. If you see an apartment that is for sale and it says short lease, or if it says the lease remaining is 80 years or less, those properties are currently difficult to mortgage. However, there is a value in getting the lease extended. Now, this is really important because in the past, when the lease got extended, it was extended between 50 and 99 years. Now, the new law says that the next time that lease is extended, it has to be extended for 990 years. Now, what we call a 990-year lease, or longer than 990 years, is a virtual freehold. So it's like owning it as a freehold. Now, this is really interesting. There's so many things that I'm telling you here. But this is really interesting because the law may change in the future to say that leases are exactly that, freehold, and leasehold may disappear. Now, if you're owning something that's leasehold, this will be good news for you, not bad news for you. The person it's bad news for is the freeholder, right? Because they will, today, under the current leasehold system, there's something called marriage value, which is the value that's been added to the property over time. So say somebody bought it 30 years ago and it had a 99-year lease. And now that lease is reduced by 30 years, the property is now unmortgageable. To be able to get a mortgage on that property, the leaseholder would have to go back to the freeholder and say, I want to extend my lease. When the freeholder grants that, they can demand up to 50% of the added value to the property. Now, if I said to you that property has grown by 400% in that 30-year period, capital value, the leaseholder would have to ask the freeholder to extend the lease, and the freeholder can demand up to 50% of the value that has been added to the property. Now, the new Leasehold Reform Act is designed to take that away. And so now they're having to extend them for 990 years, right? 990 years means you will never be going back and asking for an extension, okay? Now, what I'm going to say is if they become freehold in the future in something called common hold, completely different video, please go look at that video. If they can become freehold in the future, right, then that means you will never have to ask for a lease extension again, and you will own the value of the increase yourself.